The country which has benefited most from NAFTA obviously is Mexico. Mexico has been able to get access to the US market, the world's biggest market. They're pretty lucky. I mean, Mexico and Canada are the two luckiest countries in the world because of geography, because they're on either side of the US border. There is a side agreement on labor which President Clinton put in, which says that in Mexico, unions have the right to exist and workers have the right to be unionized. So Mexico agreed essentially to match the standards for dealing with workers, which exist under law in the United States and Canada. US and Canada both have rights for unions. So Mexico agreed to that. So there was some concern about worker rights.
Mexico, the cradle of corn production, where corn was domesticated 6,000 years ago. We now have genetically modified corn being grown in Mexico, whether people want to or not. We now have huge imports of U.S. corn into a country because the farmers are not competitive in a global sense. Productivity is very low, and farmers can't compete. It's a huge factor. I mean, if you look at the increase in immigration numbers from Mexico following, you have two factors. You have the implementation of NAFTA in '94, which coincided with a really significant economic downturn in Mexico in '94, '95. And to give you an idea, the average income levels in Mexico didn't reach the same level, the average income in '94, until 2006. It took 12 years for average incomes to catch up. So the confluence of NAFTA, which had a negative impact on agriculture and rural communities, and the economic crisis in Mexico, which is two huge factors in pushing folks to migrate. And as we know that migration is it's based on networks, right? So once people begin to move, there's more incentive, and it makes it easier for subsequent groups to move. So there's no doubt that NAFTA contributed to that.
So under NAFTA, it's not like the European Union. People cannot move between the countries legally. Only professional people, that is, people with a college degree, can apply to work in the other country. So professors can work in different countries, accountants, consultants. There's a listed set of professions, and that gives some mobility. But you can't reside permanently in the other country. You can work there for a job, and then you have to go back to your country. So the flaw in NAFTA is, in fact, it didn't deal with labor, and it didn't deal with immigration. But that's because Canada and Mexico probably feel dominated by US, and US concerned about Mexican immigration, so they didn't want to go near it. in fact, the Canada-US trade agreement on NAFTA basically came and put some rules for governing existing trade. Let's just say one industry, one third of all U.S. trade is the automobile industry, parts. So that one sector is intensely integrated across the border, Michigan-Ontario border, Windsor-Detroit. There's to and fro supplies, just-in-time supplies, and so on. And that goes back about 50 years now. Back in the 1960s, Canada-US agreed on a thing called the Auto Pact, which was a managed trade agreement that was incorporated into NAFTA. So then you look at what other business there is. At the moment, US benefits tremendously from having access to secure supplies of energy from Canada. Under NAFTA, if Canadians have signed an agreement to supply oil from the Alberta oil fields or the tar sands, they have to complete the contract. They just can't cut it off. So Canada is the most secure supplier of US oil. It supplies about half of all the imported oil. Canada supplies more oil to the United States than all of the Persian Gulf countries. So add up Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, all these countries. Actually, US gets more oil from Canada, and that's secured under NAFTA. In return, Canadian businesses get secure access to the US market for their products. So it's very much of a trade agreement.